Hi, once again this is Ed from Exotic Blanks with a new video introducing a new product. Tonight we're going to introduce Heatwave. This is a new epoxy resin with a number of pieces in it of aluminum and other different kinds of metal depending on which one we're talking about. But we're going to turn this and show a few of the features and some of the things you need to be aware of. As you can see, it starts out as a square blank, and I am going across it, taking off just the corners. I have changed a little bit in that I have now 4 sharpened skews next to me, so from time to time you may see the tool change. I'll try to remember to point out that I'm merely changing because one is getting dull. This material is relatively dense, and so it does work your tool, and you do want your tool to be sharp because you're cutting those metal pieces as you go from one side to the other. As you will see, I take the edges off as I go toward the bushing on these blanks, and pretty much every blank I ever turn. I like to work with the edges very close to a finished dimension. Realize that this has not been faced yet. I don't face the blanks until later in the process, and you'll see that. So what I'm trying to do by taking off those ends, if you should have a catch and you damage the blank, it usually, I stress usually, this is not a rule, it's a hope and a prayer, won't break deeper than the end of the blank. So if you have this already down to about the right size, usually that will control the break and you won't end up ruining the blank beyond recognition. Again, this is not a rule. This is just something that I've observed over the years, and if you try to do the rounding on the edges, you will find that you don't have as many problems. Now, the other thing that we can talk about in the next half is the turn between centers, but right now it's time to face it. Facing the blank is very simple. As you can see, I have the speed doubled on this particular one so that it doesn't take as long. The sandpaper disc is on the headstock and it spins, and I just advance the pieces, the blanks, up to that paper until I get them down to the brass. You're sure to be perpendicular because you have a punch coming out of the tailstock. As I can see here, I changed the orientation of the sandpaper. That's how you can get fresh sandpaper very quickly. All in all, it's a very good system. I've been very happy with what I produced with this system. So try it. I think you'll like it, and I have a video on how to make that disc if you haven't seen it before. On to the second turning. Okay, now the ends are square, and so the bushings are against a flat surface. So I touch each one of them to make sure that they're running true. That is, that there's not any wobble in them. But if you look at the left-hand side of that blank, you can see that it had a wobble. It still does, but it's going awfully fast so you can't see it. That is because it was not square when I turned it up to this point, but I don't care because the turning from here forward will give me the correct flat surface, and it will give me the right round end so that everything will mesh when we put that pen together. So the turn between centers has been discussed on a couple of forums, and in this situation, I'm using standard bushings. I'm not using turn between center bushings. These only go into that blank about 1/2 inch. But they're both on good 60-degree centers, and they're both turning absolutely round. You can feel if there's any kind of a bounce in them, and there isn't. So I will end up with a perfect pen, and so will you. It's just a matter of getting them right at this point. As you can see, the blank is going smoothly. I do take very thin cuts on this. Usually you can watch and you'll see that there's a ridge where I'm cutting. I'm actually taking off enough that it's visible. With this, if you look at all the shavings that are laying there, and everything else is very narrow, which means that my tool is touching that blank at only one point. I'm going as much as I can, cutting off very, very tiny pieces. I can also feel that metal. So when you are turning it, if you feel that you're hitting something, yes, you are. And a nice sharp tool is going to cut right through it. I will tell you that in doing this with several of these blanks over the last couple of days, I have not dislodged one piece of that metal. I have chipped a couple of blanks, but I haven't dislodged any of the pieces. The pieces, the ones that I've chipped, I will have a video on how to repair them. I'm just working on a couple of methods to make sure what works best. So it will be repairable. It's just a question of how or what's best. So as you can see, I'm doing the sanding here. Remember that you are sanding something that has metal in it. So if you look at your sandpaper and it looks black, it's not surprising. You're sanding metal. It will look black. The same is true if you take this, as I do, from here to the buffer. You're going to get some blackness on your buffing wheels. So I actually have a different set of wheels that I use when I know I'm going to buff something that's going to turn it black. So if you are concerned about that, and you should be, it's a good idea to have some extra wheels available to you to do this kind of buffing. This is a two-part pen. It's a junior series. So that's why suddenly we're done with one and we're going to move into the second one. This is the cap, as you can see, and once it's in position, you can see the wobble on that too real well there for a second. Again, it's out of round on both ends, but that's okay because now I'm going to put it back on the lathe and round it out. As long as you see those bushings without a wobble, you know that you're okay. You will get a round blank when you're finished, a round pen when you're finished. Again, one of the things I learned as I was doing this, I usually throw my shavings up into the air and have a wonderful time with them. With this, I went from side to side and tried to make sure that everything was coming off parallel to the mandrel. That way I didn't catch on any of the metal parts. So to sum it up, best thing I can tell you is take very light cuts and try to keep your tool moving parallel to where the mandrel would be, parallel to the blank. And you shouldn't have any major problems turning this material. As usual, thank you for watching, and please, if you can, subscribe to our channel. We would like to do more things on YouTube, but some of them require 1,000 subscribers, and when I moved, I didn't bring my subscribers with, unfortunately. So we would like to get up to the 1,000 subscribers. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them on the notes below the video, and I certainly will read them and try to get back, answer them from time to time. So once again, this is Ed from Exotic Blanks, and we thank you for watching. You won't see the finished pen because you can see right there there's a nick in it, so that's one of the ones that I will be working on to try to figure out what's the best way to solve that problem. Have a good afternoon or evening. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Ed from Exotics, bye now.